He's a very strange man, is Weird Al Yankovic. Benito Fonzo.
Well, that's why it's called Weird.
Weird Al Yankovic.
Otherwise, he'd be absolutely normal.
Absolutely normal.
Yankovic. He tried that for a while.
Straight Al Yankovic.
He had a career of somewhat 10 years as absolutely normal Al Yankovic, and it just didn't work. And then one day, he had a brainwave.
The Chronic Ills of Robert Zimmerman. Is it allowed to be called just The Chronic Ills, or do you want to...
No, I'd like you to read the full title.
The Chronic Ills of Robert Zimmerman, a.k.a. Bob Dylan, a liar, theatrical, talking blues, and Glissendorf. I am, of course, joined by Benito Fonzo, who wrote the play. Now, just kind of taking off from where we left off, what's the structure of the show in the sense of how many people have you got working inside of this thing? Are we...
Right, well, there's 3 actors and one musician who is the band, underpinning the whole thing on various instruments. He's a multi-instrumentalist,
right?
Simon Rippingale.
Right.
And then we've got...
he does that one-man band thing.
He does that one-man band thing, yeah. And he's a very talented cat. Then there's Matt Ralph, who's a great singer-songwriter from Bondi.
Right.
Originally from Perth, who plays Bob. And then there's Lenny Munro, who's a gorgeous, vivacious creature who plays all sorts of characters. Actually, she's one of the swing actors, and she plays Joan Baez and Jesus, and Yoko Ono, and Bob's wives.
So in these sort of situations where you're talking about if you've got
there's another actor, but go on. Sorry.
Where you've got we'll get to him later, but where you've got somebody playing Joan Baez who people will know was a big part of Bob Dylan's life, and then you've got this actor obviously embodying Jesus.
Yeah.
How true do you keep the Bob-Joan relationship in the script? Like, we all know, I guess, the history if we sit down and look at it.
I decided that, it had to be exactly like the relationship between Bob and Jesus. But one with Joan, I sort of, it's a bit more vague, yeah. So we're in Bob's head. It's how Bob sees the world. And, except, of course, in the case of Jesus, as I said, which is exactly as Jesus is in real life.
Yes, and I mean, that character's been done to death, really, in a normal sense.
Oh, you can't say that. Oh.
He never gets off the TV.
Jesus must be rolling in his grave.
He'll be very angry with the station. So, okay, so we've got Jesus, we've got his wives coming in and talking to him, and these are all done by the one person?
Yes. They're all done by Lenore Munro.
Okay. And obviously there's more from the other actor that go through and talk and impact on Bob. What about the...
Andrew Henry.
Right.
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the music component of the show, which is obviously Bob's...
Bob does songs, and we've steered away from doing the classic, predictable stuff. Bob's doing trad numbers. He's doing numbers, which in a sense is kind of a comment on, where Bob's music comes from, as much as our inability to get licensing for Bob's back catalogue. But
did he read the script? Do you know?
I don't know. Bob's people have been sent a copy of the script.
Okay.
Whether Bob's read it, who knows? I mean, Bob's a busy man.
So you wrote this show planning on having these songs in it.
Look, you don't want that, really. You don't want that. What you want is an alternate way of looking at Bob. There's been movies and books about the reality of Bob, and these are the songs, and blah, blah, blah. This is a surreal entertainment that goes beyond that, and it's a piece of absurdist theatre, and it doesn't want to be distracted by the
jukebox.
Jukebox,
people
that's right.
The big songs.
The jukebox, the arena, Greece Arena is spectacular too. Or,
right. So that would have been an easy thing for you to see that?
Oh, obviously, yes. That was obvious very early on.
And so we're talking about Woody Guthrie songs that he does, is that right? Or we're going before Woody Guthrie?
All sorts of before Woody Guthrie, trad numbers.
Traditional
songs, yes. Trad is, yes. And of course there are other characters in there. Johnny Cash has a song, and Joan Baez does a song. And, so there are other musical artists in there. And of course the whole thing is, as it infers in the title, theatrical talking blues. So in a sense, the whole thing is a song. And that's why we've got Simon underpinning musically the whole kit and caboodle.
So, if you don't mind me saying so,
I do mind you touching me. Yes.
the way that this has come across, I mean, it sounds extremely interesting and exciting and all that sort of stuff. But from an audience point of view, are you meant to just sit there and be confused? Or
No, you could stand up. You
could stand up.
You could hop on one foot, but that might be a little bit distracting for the actors.
That's true. So in lieu of not being able to do those things, what do you write?
It's probably best you go to the loo before entering the theatre.
Do you write
because
this?
There's no latecomers entry. We have that issue at Tamara McGold Fitzroy.
Yeah, because once you go out, you can't come back.
You can't come in. Yeah, it's like except unless you believe in reincarnation.
And those larksters, they sit around with everything.
Yeah.
So no, but do you write a show and you preempt what you want? Do you have a goal for what you want the audience to come away with? Do you have that sort of idea?
You just find a voice and you create a character and find a voice and write something. You just let your imagination run wild.
Yeah, and
then you can structure it. Obviously, every show is different. Some things, I'm writing something at the moment which is very structured. I know the full narrative, the full journey of it. Mm-hmm. But with this, I had a vague sense of obviously the journey to some degree follows Bob's life, so I did have some sense of the journey. And but as the character says at one point, he remembers things in more pentatonic than chronological order, so it's not completely chronological. So there is a narrative and there is a journey in there. Bob's, looking for, as in theory, every archetypal character is looking for a grail, a goal in life, and he goes through a series of false gods, and then eventually he has his epiphany and discovers. Well, I don't want to give away the story, but
no, don't give it away. We're all going to book tickets. But what's the what Bob?
Well, we gave you a comp.
There, I've got the comp, but I'll get my wife to pay. What's the Bob voice that we hear? The mistress will come along, but she'll have to sit in the other row. Okay. What's the Bob voice that we hear? Because he's the ultimate artist. That he assumes an identity and then he rejects it. So that's why when you look at photos of Bob in various decades and decades, he's completely different.
He's playing with concepts. He's playing with words when he talks. He's playing with ideas.
In your show,
in real life, I think. You've got to remember that the way people talk in interviews and in the lyrics, the lyrics people use in a song, or even with someone like Bob, who everyone deals with their sort of social issues in their own way. And I know that what I've read when Bob was younger, one of the ways he dealt with it was through things like Glissendorfing, and even in Greenwich Village, he used to be very sarcastic and stuff with people as a way of dealing with his way of dealing with the world. So, but that's not necessarily the real him. That's him playing with ideas and playing with self-mythologizing, and that's what the story does, because the human imagination is more interesting than a series of events. If you just look at someone's life as a series of events, then their life really isn't that interesting, even if they are Bob Dylan. But if you let a sense of imagination run over that and go through the way they view their life, then that's a bit more interesting. And that's why people are interested in religions, because if you really had the life of a Buddha or a Jesus or whatever without the miracles, then, there'd just be some guy who, lost his job as a carpenter. But there's a whole mythology built around it, and that makes it more interesting.
And it was just the fact that you were a fan of Bob Dylan, that you saw him as a person, that you could use this idea that you've just been talking about to write a play.
Yes, more or less.
So it wasn't anything particularly about Bob, only the fact that he's had a very,
No, it's the fact that he has a distinctive voice.
Yeah.
That I'm using, that I've adopted. It's like, how when a musician, or, like someone like Robert Cray, the blues guitarist, is famous because he can play guitar like any blues guitarist you tell him to do. He also has his own style, but if you say to him, play like Eric Clapton, he'll play like Eric Clapton. Play like B.B. King, he'll play like B.B. King, or whoever you
So you're thinking, I'm going to write like Bob Dylan, if I don't mind saying so.
That sounds a little pretentious, but I'm
getting
adopting
the
voice.
Getting the voice. Yeah. All right, well, look, we'll go to another song. We'll be right back with Benito de Fonzo. You all right to stick around for another couple of minutes?
I'd dance like Sammy Davis Jr. if I could, but I've got this one leg, so,
We'll be right back.